All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's session for Sumo Logic's Brown Bag focused on security. My name is Lisa Carnes, and I'm one of the CSMs here at Sumo, and I'm going to get things kicked off here for us real quick. Just a recap, if you haven't been to one of our sessions before, we started the series back in April, and usually they're on the second, third, and fourth Tuesday of every month. But this November and December, we've altered the schedule for the holidays. And so it's on the first and second Tuesday of both of those months. And these sessions are focused on technical topics with a technical person at Sumo, and it's designed to be an intimate setting, very non-formal opportunity for our customers to spend some time with us. And so today I'm really excited. Our security session is being led by our Senior Director of Customer Engineering for Automation and Orchestration, Andrea. And he actually came to us from the DF Labs acquisition, which happened back in May 2021. And for the last 12 years, he's been working on the same tool, which today we call CloudSOAR. And so today's session, he's going to be teaching us on Sumo Logic's CSE automation. And so as with all of our sessions, if you have any questions, I've opened up the chat to everyone, and I've also enabled Q&A, of course. So any questions that you have, feel free to chime in. Andrea can also take a pause and re-review if you have further questions on what he's going to cover today. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Andrea.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and I'm pleased to be here with you guys. So today we will describe what is the automation service in CSE. CSE stands for SIEM Enterprise, which is our SIEM. We will proceed with a deep dive into automation. We will learn how to leverage the detection done by CSE and how to automatically kick off the execution of specific workflows. Workflows are, let's say, a combination of different type of actions. We call them playbooks, and they are composed by different type of actions referring to orchestrating activities into external technologies. What are the benefits of leveraging these new functionalities? First of all, as I mentioned, it's the ability to automatically activate an advanced sequence of automated actions performed in external technologies. This is the concept of orchestration, and implies, first of all, to have kind of plugins into our platform for connecting with these external technologies, which are part of your customer ecosystems. I'm thinking of technologies for the enrichment, technology for the containment, technology, for example, for the domain controls, Active Directory, CrowdStrike, Carbon Blacks, all the different firewalls, and so on. And this is mostly for reducing the time to react. Reducing time to react is one of the main drivers for all our customers. For example, those KPIs like MTTR, mean time to respond. These type of KPIs are fundamental in every SOC. So it's one of the metrics why they are typically monitored, and it's one of the reasons why our customers typically adopt our CloudSOAR solution. Complexity about the workflows is another reason why they are adopted. It's possible to automate easy tasks. We apply the concept of, let's say, progressive automation, which means start small, automate the basic flows, the basic tasks, typically the time-consuming, mundane, and repetitive tasks, and then move on and implement more sophisticated automation. The concept of increasing the complexity of the workflow, what we call the playbooks, typically pairs with the maturity model of the customer. So it's possible to start with basic enrichment and then maybe enhance it, adding maybe custom scripts, custom actions, custom processings, or maybe containment eradication and let's say notifications if you need also to notify external teams. And then, of course, it's possible to invoke, let's say, children playbooks and inside those new extra playbooks to perform additional, let's say, processing. So it's possible to build hierarchies of playbooks, and every playbook can have different level of complexities. The overall objective is, in most of the implementations, to reduce the workload and the fatigue on the SOC analysts. What is our vision is that we would like those analysts to be busy in taking decisions, evaluating maybe the attack scenarios, and evaluating the possible alternatives, instead of spending their life in enriching IPs, enriching URL, checking the reputation, checking maybe external threat intelligence sources for being current with the most recent threats appearing in the wild. So for all these type of activities, it's possible to create a playbook or a combination of playbooks, which will help in gather all these external info and present them in a unique dashboard to the analyst. So the message is that our tool represents a unique pane of glass used to improve the efficiency in terms of response, responding to incident, to improve the efficiency of the SOC team. And as I anticipated, our vision is to free up their time to be busy in evaluating the scenario, taking a decision, evaluating the possible alternative, maybe providing an input or a validation, or supervising what are the actions being implemented inside those specific playbooks, instead of spending their hours in just collecting info from the external sources and being constantly busy with the multiple different IOCs, which are part of every attack. So the enrichment of the different IOCs can be automated. The remediation can be automated. If you want to have supervision, then you can plug in operators asking the analyst to review the result, give a green light, and execute the action. So that's the concept of, let's say, automating the SOC activities, the SOC operations, and that's the concept of the modern SOC that we here at Sumo, we envision for the future. When it comes to building the workflows, the playbooks, of course, we don't want to start from scratch. We have a library of best practices, what we call App Central. I will show you in the demo soon. And from there, you will find 480 out of the box playbooks that can be plugged in with a couple of clicks, and then they are ready to go. Of course, they can be customized. Maybe you can find a playbook based on some technologies. You adopted different technologies, so we need just to adapt some boxes to, let's say, invoke the appropriate external technologies, which are part of your ecosystem. But the overall flow is ready to go. So it's really a matter of few hours instead of months for going live with real production use cases. Now, how to implement all this stuff? First of all, in the automation service, we introduced the concept of automation, which means a specific section of the system where you can configure what is the entity that you want to monitor and what is the corresponding playbook that you want to invoke. You can decide what are the conditions for triggering that specific playbook. For example, when the alert is detected, when and the incident is created, or when it is closed, or anytime that the analyst want to submit it manually. And it's part of defining the automation rule. Inside the automation rule, as you can see here, we can specify what's the playbook to be invoked. So the combination of what are the conditions triggering the automation, inside created, inside closed, or manually execution, plus what is the playbook that will be executed. And the playbook to be executed represents the sequence of actions, operators, thresholds, and so on, all the details of the activity that nowadays is executed manually by the SOC analyst. So this represents what we call automation. And then, of course, the playbook is executed, ingesting inputs from the inside. Typically, all fields of the insights and of the corresponding signals are ingested, so they can be used, they can be evaluated, and they can be used as inputs for the different actions. And then when it completes, it's possible to propagate back results into the insight. So for example, updating the severity of the insight, updating the status, propagating back some notes as part of the enrichment in the specific case. So in a nutshell, this is the concept of automation. Now let's try to understand what are the typical use cases where automation can be beneficial for the SOC teams. Of course, all the cyber use cases, and here you have the top 3 ranking of the typical use cases that we have implemented over the years with all our customers. It has been 12 years that I've been working with customers, and I've seen many of these use cases. Definitely phishing is a pain for all of our customers. So we have multiple best practice playbooks for the phishing use case. Malware and ransomware is on the verge these years, so definitely it's another important use case. But then also the insider threats, user compromised, lateral movements, privilege escalation. These are the typical use cases related, which goes under the let's say umbrella of the internal threats. These are the number 3 typical use cases that we implement with all our customers. Together with cyber, we have a series also of non-cyber use cases, typically related to adoption of IoT, which is becoming very popular in the last few years, OT, operational technologies, or just to replace ITSM systems, or let's say cooperate with ITSM systems for tracking specific types of tickets or incidents or security use cases or forensic use cases and so on. So the typical case of, let's say, case management and ticket management. For both of these big categories, regardless of the type, what we suggest is a specific methodology that we tuned over the years based on our experience working with customers. First of all, it's important to focus on the use cases where you have inefficient activities. I mentioned already repetitive, mundane, and time-consuming tasks. These are examples of, let's say, selection criteria to identify where to apply automation. The second, let's say, criteria is based on how you feel confident and comfortable in adopting full automation. So there are use cases where you prefer to have supervision by the user, by the analyst, or different use cases where you feel completely comfortable. For example, gathering info from threat intel sources, from different threat intel sources, and aggregating all those info into a specific maybe node or let's say enrichment detail on the inside. So depending on what is your maturity level and what are the specific important use cases and the efficiency that you want to achieve, then the idea is to identify those workflows and start implementing them into the system. So that's just an overview. If it's okay now, Lisa, we can switch immediately into the platform, and I can show how it works in reality. Okay, this is the let's say CSE, SIEM Enterprise interface. As you can see here, there are the logs ingested, the alerts generated, and in this specific menu, there is a new entry which is named automation. So automation is a dedicated section for this service. Automation service is the name of the functionality, where you can create and define what are the specific automation rules. So here, anytime it's possible to create a new one, pretty simple. First of all, you have to choose what is the playbook that you wanna, let's say, configure. So for example, enrich an entity with PowerShell CrowdStrike, so, or with Carbon Black, or with any other technology. So Depending on what are your technologies that you have available in your infrastructure, of course, we can help you, or you can create it on your own specific playbooks to perform specific activities. Then we can invoke them here, specify what's the entity that we can work on. So for example, the all inside detected by CSC, or just the entity that has been identified inside the inside. And in both cases, you can specify what are the triggering events. For example, the playbook will be executed when the inside is created, or when the inside will be closed, or in both cases, or the playbook might be executed manually, which means it has to be kicked off by the analyst. And then it's possible to combine all the three, which implies that when the insight will be created, the playbook will be executed. That anytime, while the insight is still open, anytime the analyst can execute it manually, can invoke it manually. And when the insight will be closed automatically or manually, then the corresponding playbook will be invoked once more. So in this case, once the automation rule has been created, it will appear here in the list. And anytime, of course, you can decide to enable it or disable it. So in case I don't want to delete it, but I want to simply disable it, I can do it this way. So it means it will remain in the system, but it will be marked as disabled. While if it is in the system and it is active, I mean, enabled, it means that it will be executed anytime that one of these three conditions is satisfied. Okay? So this is how to configure the automation rules. We mentioned that it kicks off playbooks. And for example, this is the playbook that this rule will kick off when the insight is created, it's closed, or when the analyst will invoke it manually. Now, if we want to understand what is the playbook for and what is the flow, we can jump into this section. This is the backend where we can configure the different, let's say, playbooks with the different actions and, sorry, different workflows. We have a search bar here where we can perform searches, for example, here. And this is the playbook that we have configured in the previous screen here to be executed in these conditions. So if we want to review and understand what it is, that's the one. I can, let's say, of course, zoom in and out. I can modify. I can add. I mean, I can edit the existing blocks, maybe changing the description or the resources or the type of actions. Or I can decide to add a new action. Task represents a manual activity. Actions are all automated actions. And here you have all the different connectors with the external integrations that are enabled into the system. So depending on the technology that you want to orchestrate, you will have here a list of possible actions, which are depending on the technology. So for example, if I modify and I go and select abuse IPDB, you will find again enrichment actions, but as you can see, the functionalities are slightly different. And then once you have decided what are the, let's say, what is the action, you need to specify what is the input for that specific action. So you can either mention it as a static input, or you can configure it to be the output of a previously executed action. So these are the existing, let's say, either input of the playbook or existing actions which have been executed so far. And then you can select, for example, let's use the input value which is coming from the playbook, from the inside. Once the new block has been created, of course, you can reconnect, you can rearrange the different flow, you can maybe plug in this extra box, rearrange the flow, and then reconnect it with that one. Anytime, of course, you can introduce operators. Condition is a logical operator, let's say something like kind of if-then condition. The filter is, let's say, the ability to consider a subset out of the result maybe of another action. So if you want to consider a subset of the record set, you can configure the filter. And the user choice is the option to ask the user for providing an input, maybe posting a question to the user and waiting for their reply, their green light, or their confirmation, or their approval. And this is the operator for invoking let's say, a child playbook. And then, of course, you need to configure all the different parameters of this child, but it will appear again as another box here. And then, of course, you can reconnect the flow. Then you can save the playbook and keep it there. And as you can see here, we maintain the versioning. So we can have different versions. This is currently a draft. I can confirm that it has to be published as the new version for production. And then I can publish it. So it means this is the official version that will be used every time that this corresponding automation will kick in and invoke that playbook for the execution. Okay, so that's the overall concept of, let's say, uh, invoking a playbook from the automation rule. How can we create playbooks? Of course, is different ways. Of course, I can create a new one starting from scratch here, defining what's the name, what's the type, and a description. And then I will have the chance to create the different blocks exactly as I showed you right now. But there is another option, which is what I mentioned previously. The App Central, which is our marketplace. As you can see here, we have a bunch of playbooks available, and we have a bunch of integrations available, which is possible to search through here. So I can search, for example, for, I don't know, carbon black. That's an example. And then I will find the different connectors. I might decide, hey, this is the one that I want to import, VMware Carbon Black Cloud Enterprise EDR. I can decide to download it, install it. These are the actions that will become available as building blocks to be used in creating new playbooks, of course. And now the system is just importing into my specific instance. And then, of course, I have to configure the connection details, because we provide the connectors for the different technologies, but we don't provide the subscriptions. So you need to have an active subscriptions, which implies that you might have credentials for logging in, API keys, secrets, certificates, base64 certificates, whatever it is required by these external technologies for connecting. Consider all these integrations are, at the end of the day, are bidirectional API integrations. So we connect through APIs, we can provide info, and we can ingest back info into our platform. And from time to time, we update these integrations, these connectors, because of course, new APIs are released by this external provider. New functionalities are provided, and maybe some of the parameters have changed. So from time to time, we review and publish new versions of these specific integrations. Now, the integrations which are currently activated into our instance are available under this section, this menu named integrations. And here I can see all of them. And for all of them, I can see what are the actions which are available. So for example, I have different actions for the different integrations, depending on what is that specific integration for. And of course, we have also connector with ChatGPT and the traditional AI engines, because more and more it's becoming popular. So for all these connectors, we have the different set of, let's say, actions. And as you can see, they are changing one to another. And of course, for all of them, I can see what is the source code. This gives the flexibility to review the existing logic and maybe to decide that we want to slightly customize it. We want to have something more, maybe an extra step added here while invoking these specific technologies. So the connectors that we provide are, for this reason, are defined the best practice. They have been, all of them have been used in previous installations and configurations and deployments with other customers. So, so they are available for the production. They are ready for the production, and they provide a bunch of actions which are good for creating production workflows. But we understand that every customer might be different from the others, and we want to provide the flexibility to refine the existing logic, modify, add extra steps, and create your own specific functionality. So you can go here, modify, for example, the output parameters that you want to create, that you want to expose. That's something that you can configure and decide. Then finally, you can save it. And then, of course, you can test it from here. Because from here, you can just click it, provide the appropriate details, and then test the action. Now, this is junk data, so it won't work. But with real details, that's the way how we support rapid development of new playbooks. With that said, of course, it might be also the case that you want to work with technologies for which we don't have yet the connector. That's not a big deal. We can develop a new connector, or you can develop it on your own, because of course, anytime it's possible to add a new integration, just dropping the files here. We support 4 languages, programming languages for developing new connectors: per, Python, PowerShell, and shell scripting. And the configuration language is YAML. So when you have prepared the specific files representing the different actions, and remember, there will be one file for every different action, then you can upload them here. And of course, it will appear as a new connector here in this section. These connectors work exactly as the plugins into the browser. You can just activate, configure it, and then the corresponding actions will be available inside the playbook when you design a new workflow. I mentioned that both are available into the App Central, either the integrations, the connectors, and the playbooks. And even for playbooks, it works exactly the same. Playbooks will land here, so they will appear here in this section. And of course, what I showed you previously is exactly what will be done during the deployment. So you choose a use case from the set of the best practice, and then working together, we can refine it, because maybe some actions work with some specific technologies, and you have another one, so we can simply replace it. The typical use case is dealing with an ITSM. Maybe into our playbook, it was configured ServiceNow, but you work with Jira, so it's just a matter of replacing that box, adding the one working with Jira, and providing the corresponding credential details for authenticating into your own specific Jira system. This section, of course, is something where you can create your own contents. I mentioned previously that you can create your own maybe playbook. You can define it of a specific type. You can add your own description and then start creating the playbook. It's all done through the wizard. It's a graphical wizard. Of course, from here, you start exactly as I showed you previously for editing an existing playbook. So start adding nodes. Maybe you want to add a first action, which is something like, I don't know, ingesting from AWS and so on. So that's the first step. And then you keep on creating the next steps. Maybe you want to add a condition, and you want to add here something like, from this first action, I will check this field, specific field, key name, to check if, for example, contains or doesn't contain or something similar. For example, the word, I don't know, production. And then this is how I have built the first condition. Of course, I can combine extra conditions with and or, and again, create similar cases. And then, of course, I will have also this, let's say, operator added into my playbook. And I keep on working that way. Maybe at this stage, I want to add the user choice, asking a question like, do you want to send the Slack message, SOC team? And then you want to provide these two answers like yes or no. And you want to maybe have a specific authorizer to provide that specific answer. So if you don't fill it in, everyone working with the system will be able to provide an answer. Otherwise, you will have only specific persons able to do it. And then you can set also an expiry. So if nobody ever replied after 30 minutes, by default, I will choose yes. So that's how you can create, let's say, this step, this action that we call user choice. But at the end of the day is the interaction with the SOC analyst. And then, of course, you can connect the different options. So, for example, this is the one. The other one, maybe here you want to create a different condition in case the test is failed. You want to do something different. For example, I don't know, you want to invoke PagerDuty for listing the users and so on. And then again, after this box, you want to reconnect it and complete the playbook. So that's how it works for creating a specific custom playbook. If you prefer to create your own instead of starting from, let's say, from one out of our library of best practices. Now, once the playbook has been created, okay, again, I can go back and create a new automation, because if I go here now, I mean, here in the different, let's say, list of the different playbooks, I will find all the playbooks that are ready for the production, which means that have been published. So before finding the playbook there, of course, I need to make it as official for the production. As you can see here now, it's a draft. Here, if we try to find it, remember that it was named My Playbook, it's not appearing there. So first of all, we have to go there, publish it, which means just clicking here, providing a description, reason for publishing it. And then, okay, now some of the details have not been configured, but because of course there is here something that has not been completed. When we save and publish for production, there is a validation step that is, let's say, executed before going to the production. Now you see, I can't connect it because it's exactly how it goes on the other way. So I need to add an extra box here. For example, let me just pick up any action here, create this extra box here, connect it here, and then I can complete the flow. Now I can close it and publish it. Frankly speaking, I should have to fill in all the possible, let's say, parameters for the actions. Otherwise, it's not possible to save. But if I fill in all the details, all these, let's say, input parameters, then I will be allowed to publish it. And once it's published, it will appear here in this list. So I can pick up maybe that specific new playbook. I can decide that I want this to work on the entity, and I need to decide that this is probably an IP address, because of course this is a playbook for the IP address. And then I can select what is the event for which I want to launch the automation. So again, we are back to the previous step where we have now configured a rule that will be triggered in these conditions. And then, of course, this implements the automation. Consider that every time that we are here, of course, sorry, every time that we are here, of course, we have the overall let's say, overview. So if our playbooks updates, for example, the status of the different insights, then it will be reflected here. So dynamically, based on the execution of the different playbooks on the specific, let's say, insights, we might have the dashboard automatically updated. And when we are inside an insight and we are processing, let's say, working on the incident and processing all info, the enrichment and so on, anytime we can decide to invoke the automation. You see here, this is the list of the playbooks that have been marked as with manual execution. Remember that the one with carbon black is the one that I have previously created, the one there. So it will appear here because I marked it as for manual execution. If I just selected to execute, I mean, to launch the automation only when the insight is created or when the insight is closed, then it won't appear here. To appear here, it has to be marked as for manual execution, which implies that anytime the user can submit it, it will run, of course, into the background, and it will propagate in here the results based on the logic which is implemented inside the playbook. So the concept of ease of use, the concept of simplicity, the concept of hiding the complexity of the enrichment, the playbooks, and the overall workflow is implemented because everything runs in the background and you don't need to go and check what is the status and what is the workflow. Unless, of course, there is an interaction with the user. Because if in between two actions, there is a user choice, of course, the playbook will pause, waiting for the analyst to provide the input or waiting for the timeout to expire. And then in that case, it will progress and will propagate the results into the insights. That's all. I think I gave you an overview on the overall functionality, automation service into Cloud SIEM Enterprise. And Lisa, I don't know if we have any question.
We didn't have any specific to what you were sharing, so we can open it up to the floor now. Anyone want to type in a question, or you can raise your hand and I can take you off mute and you can ask the question.
Okay.
Yep, so we'll just give everyone a minute or so.
Right.
Maybe folks are typing. But that was awesome, Andrea. Thank you.
My pleasure. So no problem at all. Oh, I think there is one question. Let me just read it out. Okay. What is the average complexity of implementing a playbook through automation? So first of all, depends on the technologies that you have at your site. We work with companies who have maybe 5 to 10 different technologies. We work with other companies where they have maybe 20 to 50 or more technologies. Depending on the objective and the scope that you have, that you want to set, we can start implementing a basic playbook, maybe with 10, 20, 50 boxes in a matter of 2-3 weeks. And if it's one of the use cases that we have in our best practice, it's even faster. Typically for one playbook, creating the playbook, activating, testing, and rolling out to production is a matter of a few weeks, even less than a week, if you have clear in mind what is the playbook, what is the workflow that you want to implement, where are the inputs, and what are the credentials for connecting into the external technologies. In the most sophisticated use case that we have seen in these past 12 years, we never crossed something like maybe 3-4 weeks for one specific playbook, but the workflow was very, very sophisticated with multiple different actions, maybe incorporating also custom logic, because if you have maybe scripts that you developed over the years, which are part of your, let's say, SecOps knowledge and steps, they can be transformed in custom actions and they can become part of a playbook step. So the script will become a custom action. The action will be incorporated into a playbook as a step, and it will perform, it will execute and implement the logic that you have initially designed into the script. So it's possible to adopt also very customized steps as part of the resolution of an incident. In this case, when it comes to adapting an existing script, of course, there is the additional complexity of plugging the external script into the system, dealing with internal variables coming from the insights or the entities. So this might result in an extra few days for completing these tasks. But typically from 1 week to maximum 2-3 weeks, that's the average duration of an implementation project with up to 5 use cases, 5 playbooks. I hope I answered the question.
And actually, I didn't see that question. If anyone has directly sent you a question, maybe review your chat box and to catch any of those. So thank you for looking at your chat.
No worries.
Alrighty, any other questions from the group? He's been working on this for 12 years. He knows a lot of things. Take advantage.
No worries. I think there are no other questions.
Yeah, I think we are good to go. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording right now.